Hi, this is Darren Shepard, Chief Architect of Rancher Labs, and today I just wanted to show off Rio. It's a project I've been working on for a couple months. Rio, what it is it's just supposed to be a simple, fun, end-to-end container experience. Rio was really kind of born out of the frustration of the increasing complexity of the container ecosystem. Not just the complexity of a single tool like Kubernetes, which understandably is complex, but also the amount of tools you need to get the kind of the entire production workflow working, and really it's become really quite complex and kind of unattainable for a lot of people. And so Rio is intended to make it simple, fun, bring it really to a kind of a larger audience who are not looking to become distributed systems experts and all that stuff. So secondly, Rio is a cloud-native container distribution. It's kind of a term we've just made up, but basically the idea is that we have a Linux distribution which comes with Linux, and then all the tools and all the various things around it that you need to really get Linux working. So we give you containers, and then we give you all the other software you kind of need to make containers work in production. So to give you an example, like all the various components you might need, you need like container runtime, orchestration, some networking, storage, service mesh, and it goes on and on. The things that are in yellow on this screen are components that are in this early preview right now, and the other ones we're working to integrate. And so a couple points here is one, there's a lot of things you do honestly have to put together to make a full solution around containers. The second thing we want to point out is that Rio is very much pulling in all this functionality from the community. We're just leveraging all this great technology that already exists and just wrapping it together in this really nice, easy to use package. Okay. So as I said before, Rio is available to download. It's just on our GitHub page, github.com, Rancher Rio. Just read the README. As this progresses, we'll have more and more docs and a web page and all that. Right now, it's still pretty early, but please download it, try it out. File bugs. I'm sure there should be plenty of bugs. Okay, so let me get in and start demoing this. So Rio, all it is just a single binary, just one binary called Rio. There's a lot of different ways that you can run Rio. It's very compatible with the ecosystem in general. Oops, not temp. Let me clear that. Rio server log. It's very compatible with the ecosystem. But what I'm going to demo here is kind of the simplest way to run Rio, which is just this full standalone installation. And so when you run Rio server, this basically sets up this one node here to be a server, and you can also run containers on it. If you want to add more nodes to your cluster, it's very simple. When it starts up, it's going to print out this line here that says to join a node to the cluster, just run Rio agent, and it gives you this big long token. So out of the box, everything's SSL secure. That's one of the very important things about Rio is we want to give you a Rio production grade setup, so everything SSL, like certificates. We just do all that kind of magically for you. So again, so setting up Rio on a node is just copy over the binary, run that command, it's set up. Like all you need is Linux, nothing else from the user space to care about, just a kernel with all the right options. And we've tested most of the common distros, but I'm sure you'll find some that doesn't work. Also, if you just want to just run Rio from the command line, connect to a server, that's the command you would run. It gives you the token to log in. So if I'm running Rio as root on the same server, I don't have to log in and do the token. It just finds the current server. So here I'm doing Rio PS. So the user experience of Rio is it's supposed to be familiar. So like basically we copied a lot of the Docker UX because frankly we like it. It's very good. Most people like it. So if you want to run something, it's basically like Rio run, very similar to Docker run. So if I look at like all the options here, like these are all the various things you can do. There's a lot of things. So again, like since we built this off of existing technology in the community, out of the gate has tons of functionality because it's just leveraging all that functionality that already exists in the community. So one key difference between when I'm when I do like Rio run as opposed to Docker run is when I say Rio run, I'm really creating a scalable service. So I can say Rio scale this to 3. So I'm not just launching a container, I'm launching a service that I can scale. So when I do PS here, this is just giving me the status of this one service. But if I want to dig in deeper and see the status of the individual containers, I can just say PS of the service. So it's like I can just hit one of these directly, curl that. So you can see the status of the container. So this is all kind of basic stuff. The first things I'm going to go through is just kind of the basics, kind of table stakes of what you expect in a container system. So I can run containers, scale containers. I can do like edit. So once I already have this running, I can just go and edit this. And so this brings up, these are all the various possible options. So if I wanted to, I could go and change the image to like image Nginx foo, which that's not a valid image at all. So you'll see what happens is, and this is trying to scale up. It's saying 33%, a third of it has been set up. But if I watch this, you'll keep seeing it's not going to progress. So what I have right now is I have 3 running. What these numbers here mean, the first one means I have 1 that's yet to launch. I have 0 that are running but have yet to pass health checks, and I have 3 that are running and healthy. So if you look at this, it's just kind of stuck in this state. So if I was to dig into this and say Rio PS this service, you'll end up seeing this one. It's like, oh well, it couldn't pull, failed to resolve image because this is just garbage. Anyways, so I kind of show this example just to point out, it's like this is, since it's built off of Kubernetes, all this great stuff, it's like it already has all the proper behaviors of how to roll out and encounter failures and all that stuff. So besides just editing a service, we have built in full like a file YAML format, so I can just basically like export everything I have here. So it's services. This is my bad service with Nginx foo in there. The format that we're using is basically backwards compatible with Docker Compose. We've added a lot more things for other features and whatnot, but for the most part, it's backwards compatible. So I can give you like example of like more complicated one. Like here's one deploying core DNS. I mean, it's not, none of them are terribly complicated because Docker Compose is pretty straightforward. Or here's another one for like Istio, deploying Istio. So you can export YAML. You can you can do the opposite, which is up. So I can just basically create a stack from a file. The template files support like variables and Golang templating and questions. It's all in the docs. So you can actually deploy pretty, basically something on pretty user-friendly to actually install. You just say point to this YAML and run up, and it can ask you questions and stuff like that. So that was just some of the kind of the basic things that we have going there. So I wanted to show you. So one of the cool things we've done is we pulled in Istio. Again, back on that like components page, we have a lot of things that we're going to be pulling in, like CI and logging. And so the first thing we wanted to tackle was Istio. And so let me just show you some of the like service mesh functionality that we have built in. So if I go back and look at this service, let me just delete this one. So I'm going to go and deploy a new service, and now I'm going to do port 80. Now the key thing that's different here is it's HTTP. Like normally in Docker, everything's TCP or UDP. Here I'm going to actually say it's HTTP. That lets me know that it's HTTP. I can do layer 7 routing, and this basically turns on a lot of the powerful functionality of the service mesh. So now I can go, I'm going to just do this demo application. I build the cloud, demo v1, that should be good enough. Let me see, let me just scale that just so this looks a little better. Scale gifted bore to 3. Okay, so that'll just take a second to come up. But one thing so you'll notice that's different from what other times I've run PS is I now have a DNS name. So we automatically set up DNS. This is just running a very simple service we have out in the cloud right now that just basically takes the IP of your cluster and registers it as like wildcard DNS. So like any host name you give it there is just going to resolve to your cluster. So let's see. So this should be up. So I can hit this. Same just from the command line here. So it'll just print hello world. So I have this service running. So now I want to basically stage a new version of this release. So what I can do is I just stage new version. So I can put in any parameters I want here to change, like any of the configuration. But just for simplicity, we're just gonna change the image. So say stage image. We want to upgrade this to v2, and then we're going to be updating the service, and we can give it some version at the end. Say like we're going to create like the v4 deployment. If you don't, it just creates something called next, the version called next. So you see when I do that, okay, so I now have my original service, which is up and running. It says updating. That's actually just a slightly a bug. It's not really updating. The scale is 3, but it has this original service, so I can still hit the original service and it's hello world. So while I'm staging this deployment here, my original application is still up and running. Nothing's changed. So now I have this next version is up and running, but I now have a different URL for it. So I can hit this other URL. When I bring this up, you can see it says hello world 2. So now I can do like a canary deployment, and I can check to see that this application is running fine. You can see like when I hit it, it's not. I'm actually like half the time I hit this, I'm getting an error. This is just a dummy service that I wrote that will return an error half the time. So, you check that out, you don't like it, obviously it's going to be bad for production. So we should go and update this and, fix the bug or whatever and switch it to version 3. Let me see. It seems modified, but I bet you it did update. Okay. So now I've deployed version 3 of this application. It's still under the same like URL. You can see this is rolling out. Just give it a second for it to. I think I set like the batch size. The batch size by default is just 1, so it kind of takes like a little bit for it to roll out an application. So now when I hit this same URL, next, now I'm seeing v3. Okay. So now I've deployed this application, I've checked it out, everything looks good. Well, now I want to move it into production. So what I can do is I can now, because before, whenever, this is like my production URL, when I hit this production one, it always just goes to the v1, not to the v3. So now what I can do is I can weight some of the traffic. I can say, okay, I want 10% of the traffic to go to the next version. So that means that any traffic is going to be routed to this service, 10% of it is going to go to the next version. So the easiest way to see that is if I just do something, just run from the command line here, and you'll see that. That work? Okay, so you can see some of the traffic as it was just printing out. So some of the traffic is going to v3. So I can go and I can change this and say, okay, well now I want like 90% of the traffic to go there, and then as I run that, you say, okay, now the majority of the traffic is going there. Yep. To be perfectly honest, I think I might have like some of the math wrong, so it's not perfectly 90%, but anyways, it's still early. So then once you're happy with the service, then you can just say Rio promote. You can just promote that, and what that means is that it will then push that version to be like whatever the active version is. So now when I hit when I hit this URL, I'll just get all. So again, this is a very early demo of Rio. We'd love people to try it out. We have a lot more features and functionality. That's just kind of scratching the surface of what we've done with Service Mesh. There's more routing capabilities, and we'll be doing all the TLS, MTLS stuff. So you just kind of get that all out of the box. And all right, thanks. Bye.